Chester Bennington died on July 20, 2017. A few months back, on July 18, Cornell also died. Knowing that Chris and Chester were close friends, the situation compels me to create a video. How close were these two artists exactly? Well, aside from performing on stage together multiple times, they had become so close that Cornell had named Bennington the godfather of his 11-year-old son, Chris. I can't help myself but to state what I think is happening. Could there be a conspiracy against these two artists, and done by whom? Forensic pathologist and former chief medical examiner in Wayne and Macomb counties, Dr. Werner Spitz, reviewed Chris Cornell's autopsy report. After looking through the report, Spitz said he is not absolutely convinced Chris committed suicide. The toxicology report showed the Soundgarden frontman had traces of naloxone, a narcotic overdose remedy, also butalbital, which is a sedative, lorazepam, which is Ativan used in anxiety treatment, pseudoephedrine, which is a decongestant, and barbiturates in his system. Dr. Werner Spitz, who worked on a number of high-profile cases, including the investigations of the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., said the naloxone could have been administered when Chris was found unresponsive. I think that his statement is very true, because the actual substance that Chris would have been overdosing on should have also been found, and it was not reported. Dr. Werner Spitz also said that the way Chris was found means he was able to regulate the pressure on his neck. He concluded that, in theory, it could have been just an accident. However, I think it was a bit more than that. Being able to regulate the pressure on your neck means the only way you could kill yourself is by being some kind of nutcase with your natural survival instinct completely suppressed. Many of us may have suicidal thoughts, but I would doubt you would be able to manually choke yourself to death, which is why people make sure that they can't regulate the pressure on their neck when they commit suicide. Chris Cornell killed himself with a red exercise band on a door, where he could have easily touched the ground with his feet. I mean, he's a pretty tall guy. Okay, with a serious amount of drugs, maybe you could bypass the survival instincts, but those were not found in his system. It is important to understand Chris Cornell's case before reading whatever they will release on Chester. There are some strange synchronicities going on that reinforce my outrageous speculations. For example, Chester Bennington died on the same date that Chris Cornell was born on. And there is this video on Linkin Park's YouTube channel released just 2 months ago entitled Goodbye. It is indeed the last video they've made before the tragic event happened. If you watch the video, it is very prophetic in my opinion. You see a mysterious basketball competition between Chester, or Linkin Park, and a demonic being. The demonic being is able to summon minions to play against Chester. Chester, however, manages to beat all the minions that get thrown in, and the angered demons destroys all his pawns throughout their failure. Eventually, a little girl with superior powers appears that beats them at the game, but also physically destroys both Chester and the demon. Official video interpretation might be something to the order of internal battles and obstacles that you faced in life, ultimately defeated by innocence, which is the little girl. But what if it was more than that? Is the demon in the video representing the entity that you sign a contract with to become famous? The corporation behind the scenes that controls the music industry? After all, they are signed with Warner Brothers, one of the biggest players in the game. In the early 90s, Linkin Park was just a raw, unheard of garage band, just like Korn and other rock bands. Then got turned into a very refurbished piece of art, ready to sell to the world. There's also this image with the double X in the video, which has a very high occult significance to the Luciferian doctrine followers, such as the Illuminati or Freemasons. Is this basketball game symbolizing Linkin Park trying to beat the devil's game? And if so, then what does the girl at the end represent? both Chester and the puppet master get destroyed by her. These are just very speculative interpretations, sure, but the point is we have Chester being destroyed in a video, and then he dies 2 months later. This reminds me of an event in 1977, when the album Street Survivors was released by Lynyrd Skynyrd. The image of Lynyrd Skynyrd surrounded by flame wasn't controversial at first. Sadly, 3 days after the album was released, band members Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, as well as several crew members died in a tragic plane crash while en route to Baton Rouge. Are spiritual energies at play? Is there an organization controlling everything from the shadows? And if so, how do they get inside of the artist's mind to create the art that prophesizes their own death? Occult Luciferian messages are always put in movies and popular music videos. I will give you an example from Chris Cornell's video, Black Hole Sun. The Black Sun has been a symbol used by occultists and secret societies, including Golden Dawn and Thule Society. Thule Society is actually behind the Nazi Party. Heinrich Himmler even put the Black Sun emblem in the General's Hall over at Castle Wewelsburg, and he called it the center of the New World. What New World was he talking about, and what kind of center? Well, the New World Order, of course, and the Black Sun, if you read their own writings, you find out that it is a portal to another dimension, and I suspect a very dark dimension. What do we see in Chris Cornell's video, Black Hole Sun? Well, a dark portal through which everything is absorbed, while Chris is singing the lyrics, Black Hole Sun, won't you come, and wash away the rain. Did Chris know what these lyrics and imagery actually meant from an occultist perspective? I suspect not, just as Lynyrd Skynyrd did not know their album cover actually means their death, and Chester also didn't know that his recent video was prophesizing his end. I think there are forces we do not know or be able to comprehend at play here. I can only assume that once you sign the deal, you become their property, not only with your artwork, but also with who you are, your physical being and everything that you do.
Forget about friends. Forget about family. Forget about love. You're mine, Johnny Blaze.
The artist could be therefore unknowingly under temporary possession when they write their ideas,
whispering into their ears ideas, inspiration for formulas, weapons. But I don't make them use them. They start these wars on their own.
But if you don't like this spiritual interpretation, here is something closer to reality. In the United States, there were various mind control projects done by the government under what was called MKUltra, which you can go check the public records on and see for yourself how deep they went to the point where they could erase someone's memory in Subproject 54 and then reprogram that person to whatever they wanted. This may sound like science fiction, but it did happen, and Bill Clinton even made a public apology for it.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
I'm not saying MKUltra still exists, because officially the projects were terminated in 1973, but if these technologies were researched and it is possible to do all this to a human mind, then what could stop a hidden organization that controls many aspects of our world to obtain and use these technologies? If popular artists are victims of such projects, then what could stop this force from, let's say, controlling the artist's mind into committing these suicides? And the puppet masters would get away with it too, because no one would look into the depth of this world matrix, apart from a few crazy conspiracy theorists, such as myself. What is clear for me is that these artists are victims from the moment they sign the contract. Chester was a good person. In his statements he was always respectful. Linkin Park did do a lot of charity work, so I believe their only mistake was signing the contract with these snakes. Warner Brothers officially did pay their tribute to Linkin Park and Chester, acting all heartbroken and humane, but I believe it's all part of the show. Of course, you decide what to believe. I am only presenting my perspective, and if you want to understand further how the system works, you will have to jump down a few rabbit holes. How can we stop these maleficent puppeteers, though? I do not know. Their game has been perfected through hundreds of years, and it is impossible to identify the masters. What is possible, though, is to beat them at their game, do exactly the opposite of what the advertisements and World Matrix tells us to do. Don't buy the Coke, don't go for the Ferrari, go for simplicity and human relations based in truth and love, because that is what will bring you real happiness. I mean, this is a topic for another time. But thanks for watching this video. If you believe in God, pray for these victims of this dark system. If not, stay non-compliant to the system anyway, because it is detrimental to us all, whether we're religious or not. This game's exposed. See you guys next time.